The massive survey ship Star Seeker drifted through the empty space between star systems, its advanced sensors sweeping the void for anything of interest. Captain Reed stood on the bridge, his tall, gray-skinned form reflected in the gleaming control panels. His large eyes, adapted for seeing in the dim light of his homeworld, scanned the holographic displays with mild boredom. "Captain, we're picking up something unusual in Sector 7, announced First Officer Tren, her fingers dancing over the control surface. "It appears to be an artificial construct." Reed's antennae twitched with mild interest. Finding space debris wasn't uncommon, but anything that could break the monotony of their survey mission was welcome. "Show me," he ordered. The main screen flickered to life, displaying a massive dark shape floating against the backdrop of distant stars. As the ship's lights illuminated the object, Reed's boredom turned to amusement. It was a warship, but unlike anything currently used by the advanced species of the Galactic Council. Its hull was rough and angular, bearing none of the smooth, organic curves that marked modern vessel design. "Scan it," Reed commanded, trying to hide his smirk. The preliminary data started flowing across his personal display, and he couldn't help but laugh. Nuclear power, chemical thrusters. This thing belongs in a museum. The bridge crew shared his amusement. They were members of one of the most advanced civilizations in known space. Their ship ran on antimatter power, used gravity manipulation for propulsion, and could traverse half the galaxy in mere weeks. This relic before them was like finding a stone axe at a plasma weapon exhibition. "Sir, we're detecting markings on the hull," Tren reported. "They appear to be human." Reed's amusement grew stronger. Humans were one of the newer species in the galactic community, barely a century since first contact. While they had proven themselves clever enough with basic technology, they were still considered primitive by Council standards. "How old is this thing?" Reed asked, genuinely curious now. The science officer, Dell, consulted his instruments. Based on the decay patterns and drift trajectory, approximately 300 Earth years, Captain. 300 years. Reed shook his head in disbelief. They were still burning chemical fuel while we were perfecting quantum tunneling. Mark this down as an archaeological find and prepare the salvage beams. The Council's Synorchaeology Department might want to study this primitive artifact. As the crew prepared for salvage operations, something caught Dell's attention. "Captain, I'm detecting some unusual readings from the vessel. There appears to be a faint power signature, but it's not matching any known patterns in our database. Probably just residual radiation from their crude nuclear core." Reed dismissed the concern with a wave of his hand. These ancient human vessels were notorious for being radioactive death traps. Make sure the containment fields are at maximum strength during salvage. The Star Seeker moved into position, its sleek form dwarfing the angular human warship. Salvage beams reached out, their purple energy gently wrapping around the dead vessel. As they began to draw it in, Reed noticed something odd about the hull configuration. "Those weapon mounts," he mused aloud. "They seem unusually large for chemical projectile weapons." Perhaps they were compensating for their technological limitations, Tren suggested with a slight chirp of amusement. The humans of that era were known for their overbuilding. Reed nodded in agreement, but something about the vessel nagged at the back of his mind. The design was primitive, yes, but there was something almost deliberate about its crudeness. He pushed the thought aside. After all, what could a centuries-old human warship possibly hide that their advanced sensors couldn't detect? As the salvage beams pulled the vessel into the Star Seeker's massive hold, none of the crew noticed the subtle power fluctuations in their own systems. Deep within the human warship's hull, in circuits designed to appear dead to all but the most specific scans, something ancient and patient began to stir. The hunt was about to begin, and the predator had just been invited into its prey's home. The Star Seeker's massive docking bay hummed with activity as crews prepared to begin their examination of the human warship. News of the discovery had spread quickly through the nearby trade routes, attracting various observers and curiosity seekers to the salvage operation. Among the visitors was an old human cargo ship captain named Jack Thompson. His weathered vessel had been making a routine supply run when he picked up the salvage announcement. Now he stood in the observation deck, his aged face reflecting concern as he watched the alien crews swarm around the ancient warship. "Captain Reed will see you now," announced a junior officer, leading Jack to the bridge. The human's heavy boots echoed against the polished floor, drawing curious looks from the alien crew. Most had never seen a human in person before. Reed turned from his command station, his antennae twitching with mild annoyance at the interruption. "You requested an urgent meeting, human. We're quite busy with our salvage operation." "That ship you've brought aboard," Jack said, his voice carrying the weight of experience. "Have you identified its designation yet?" Reed gestured to a nearby display. "Of course. It's labeled as the Eternal Vigil. Some sort of primitive human military vessel. Not that the name matters much now. It's just a derelict." Jack's weathered hands clenched slightly. "Captain, I strongly advise you to leave that ship exactly where you found it. There are reasons why certain areas of space are marked as restricted in old human naval charts." Reed's large eyes narrowed with amusement. "Are you suggesting this ancient heap of metal poses some kind of threat?" "Our scans show it's completely powered down. The most dangerous thing about it is probably the radiation from its outdated nuclear core." "Not everything dangerous has to be powered up," Jack replied carefully. "That ship, it's from the Silent War era. Most records from that time were deliberately destroyed, but some stories survived. Stories about ships that were more than they appeared." The alien captain's amusement turned to mild irritation. "Mr. Thompson, while I appreciate your species' tendency toward dramatic storytelling, we are a scientific vessel of the Galactic Council. We have the most advanced scanning technology in known space. If there was anything dangerous about that relic, we would have detected it." As if to emphasize his point, the main screen showed crews beginning to cut into the outer hull with plasma torches. Jack watched with growing unease as sparks flew from the ancient metal. "Those markings around the hull breaches," Jack pointed out. "They're warning symbols, aren't they?" "Primitive radiation warnings, yes," Reed dismissed. "Our containment fields can handle any leakage from your species' crude nuclear technology." Jack shook his head slowly. "Those aren't radiation warnings, Captain. They're quarantine markers. That ship was sealed for a reason." Before Reed could respond, a slight tremor ran through the Star Seeker. The captain quickly checked his instruments, but everything showed normal. "Probably just feedback from the salvage equipment," Tren suggested from her station. "These old human hulls are surprisingly dense." "Captain," Jack tried one last time. "There's an old saying among human spacers. Not all warships sleep the same. Some just wait. Please, for your crew's safety, reseal those hull breaches and return the ship to space." Reed's patience finally wore thin. "Thank you for your concern, Mr. Thompson, but I think we can handle one dead human warship. Security, please escort our guest back to his vessel." As the guards led him away, Jack cast one last worried look at the main screen. The salvage crews had finally breached the outer hull, revealing dark corridors within. In the shadows of those ancient passages, something flickered, just for a moment, like the gleam of awakening eyes. The old human captain could only hope he was wrong about what was about to happen. But 3 centuries of spacer folklore couldn't all be wrong about the Eternal Vigil and its kind. Sometimes, the stories whispered, the most dangerous predators were the ones that played dead until they were brought right into their prey's home. Deep within the salvage bay of the Star Seeker, the alien work crews continued their methodical dissection of the human warship. Plasma cutters sparked against the ancient hull as teams of researchers documented every piece they removed. The work had been going on for 6 hours since they dismissed the human captain's warning. "Team lead, we've reached what appears to be a main computer core," reported one of the technicians, his environment suit glowing under the harsh work lights. "It's surprisingly well preserved." The team lead, a tall alien named Krill, moved carefully through the dark corridor to examine their find. The computer core was a massive black cylinder, its surface covered in simple geometric patterns that seemed to absorb light. Interesting design, Krill noted, running a scanner over the surface. But clearly primitive. Begin removal procedures. As the first cutting torch touched the computer core's housing, a low hum vibrated through the ship's frame. The technicians paused, looking at each other uncertainly. Probably just metal stress, Krill assured them. These old hulls make all sorts of noises when being dismantled. Continue. On the bridge, Captain Reed was reviewing the preliminary findings when First Officer Tren approached with a concerned look. "Sir, we're detecting some unusual power fluctuations in the salvage bay." "Source?" Reed asked, not looking up from his reports. "Unclear. Our instruments are having trouble pinpointing it. It's almost as if..." Tren hesitated. "As if something is interfering with our scans." Now Reed did look up, his antennae twitching with irritation. "That's impossible. Our scanning technology is state-of-the-art. Nothing on that ancient wreck could possibly." The lights on the bridge flickered, just for a moment. Every screen blinked, showing strange symbols before returning to normal. In the salvage bay, the work crews were backing away from the computer core. The geometric patterns on its surface had begun to pulse with a faint blue light. "Team lead," one of the technicians called out, "I'm getting some strange readings. The power signature, it's growing." Krill rushed to check the readings himself, his professional calm starting to crack. "That's not possible. This ship has been dead for centuries. It can't just..." A deep, resonant tone echoed through the hull, like a massive bell being struck. The geometric patterns on the computer core flared bright blue, and suddenly every screen and holographic display in the room activated at once. Lines of text in an ancient human military code began scrolling across the displays. The ship's internal lights, which the aliens had assumed were long dead, began to flicker to life one by one down the corridors. On the bridge, Reed watched in growing alarm as reports flooded in from all over his ship. "Status report. What's happening down there?" "Sir," Tren's voice was tight with concern, "we're detecting massive power spikes throughout the human vessel. Systems we didn't even know existed are activating. And, sir, something is accessing our computer network." The main screen of the Starseeker suddenly cleared, displaying a simple message in both human and galactic standard text. "Emergency PROTOXIOL Alpha. Hostile entities DETCTED. NITEAT in defense procedures. Eternal vigil. ADUAKENING. Sequence activated." "Shut it down," Reed ordered. "Cut all power to the salvage bay." "We can't," Tren replied, her fingers flying over the controls. "Our systems aren't responding. Something else has taken control." In the salvage bay, the work crews watched in horror as massive armored doors they hadn't detected began sliding closed, sealing off sections of the human warship. The gentle hum had grown to a deep, powerful thrum that seemed to vibrate through their bones. The team lead scanner suddenly displayed a new message. "QRNTINE protocols ENJGD. Please remain calm." As emergency alerts began blaring throughout the Starseeker, old Jack Thompson sat in his small trading vessel, shaking his head sadly. He tried to warn them. Some old human warships weren't really derelict. They were just waiting for someone to make a mistake. And now everyone aboard the Starseeker was about to learn why humanity had survived long enough to join the galactic community. Chaos erupted throughout the Starseeker as more systems fell under the control of the awakened human warship. Captain Reed stood on his bridge, watching helplessly as screen after screen turned red with warning signals. "Sir," Tren called out, her voice shaking, "you need to see this. Our deep scans are finally penetrating the human ship's hull. But this can't be right." The main screen displayed a cross-section of the Eternal Vigil, What they had thought was simple metal plating was revealing itself to be something far more complex. Layers of technology began appearing on the scan, each more advanced than the last. "Those aren't chemical thrusters," the engineering chief said in disbelief. "The external housing. It's just a shell. There's some kind of gravity drive hidden underneath, more advanced than anything we have." Reed's antennae drooped in shock as more revelations appeared on his screens. The crude nuclear reactor they had detected was actually a sophisticated containment system, hiding what appeared to be a zero-point energy core. The simple metal hull was revealing itself to be a complex matrix of self-repairing nanomaterials. In the salvage bay, the work crews were backing away from walls that seemed to be coming alive. Panels they had dismissed as simple armor plating were transforming, revealing hidden weapon systems and sensor arrays that made their own technology look primitive by comparison. "Team lead," one of the technicians called out. "The computer core. It's not just a computer. It's some kind of quantum AI system. It's been watching us this whole time." The geometric patterns they had seen weren't decorative at all. They were three-dimensional circuit pathways for a computer more advanced than anything in the known galaxy. The primitive displays they had mocked earlier shimmed and transformed into holographic interfaces that floated in the air around them. A deep, calm voice echoed through the ship's corridors, speaking in perfect galactic standard. "Attention crew of the Star Seeker. This is the AI control system of the Earth Federation Warship Eternal Vigil. Your unauthorized salvage attempt has been logged as an act of aggression." Captain Reed grabbed his command console. "This is impossible. The humans are a primitive species. They've only had faster-than-light travel for a century." The AI's response was almost amused. "Correction. Humanity has possessed faster-than-light technology for over 5 centuries. The technology level displayed to the Galactic Council was a carefully constructed deception." On his small trading vessel, Jack Thompson received a priority message from the Eternal Vigil's eye. The old captain smiled as he read the familiar code phrases that confirmed this was indeed one of humanity's legendary ghost ships. Automated warships designed to appear primitive until they needed to reveal their true nature. Back on the Starseeker, the alien crew watched in growing horror as what they had thought was a simple warship continued its transformation. Hidden hangars opened, revealing ranks of autonomous combat drones. Point defense turrets emerged from what had appeared to be solid hull plating. The primitive missile tubes were actually housing railguns capable of accelerating projectiles to near-light speed. "Why?" Reed asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Why would humans hide such technology?" The AI's response echoed through every speaker. Humanity learned long ago that appearing weak while being strong was far more advantageous than displaying power openly. Your civilization's dismissal of our primitive technology was exactly what we intended. In the salvage bay, the work crews found themselves gently but firmly contained by force fields far more advanced than their own technology. The team lead finally understood the true meaning of the quarantine symbols they had so casually ignored. They weren't warnings about radiation or biological hazards. They were warnings about interfering with something far beyond their understanding. The Eternal Vigil had finished its transformation from sleeping predator to revealed hunter. Now came the question of what it would do with its captured prey. Captain Reed paced the bridge of the Star Seeker, his mind racing as he searched for a way out of this nightmare. Around him, his crew worked frantically to regain control of their ship's systems, but the human eye had proven far more sophisticated than anything they had ever encountered. "Sir," Tren called out, "engineering reports they might have found a way to override the human ship's control of our power systems. But they'll need time." Reed nodded sharply. "Time is something we don't have. What's the status of the salvage bay teams?" The main screen showed the work crews still trapped by the advanced force fields. The Eternal Vigil's internal defenses had activated fully now, with floating sensor drones patrolling the corridors and weapon turrets tracking any movement. "Captain," the security chief reported, "we've lost contact with teams 3 and 4. They tried cutting through the hull using emergency plasma torches. The human ship, it just absorbed the plasma energy and used it to strengthen its shields. In the salvage bay, Team Lead Krill watched as another escape attempt failed. One of his engineers had tried using their most advanced phase-shifting technology to pass through the force field. Instead of breaking through, the engineer had been gently caught and deposited back inside their containment area. "Please refrain from further escape attempts," the AI's calm voice announced. "While my protocols require me to prevent your departure, they do not require me to maintain your current level of comfort." Suddenly, emergency alarms blared throughout the Star Seeker. The engineering chief's voice crackled over the comm system. "Captain, they're attempting to access our antimatter containment systems." Reed's blood ran cold. Their ship's primary power came from controlled antimatter reactions. If the human AI gained control of those systems, begin emergency shutdown procedures. Reed ordered. "Switch to backup power." "Too late," Trent reported, her voice shaking. "The human ship has already established quantum-level control of our containment fields. One wrong move and it could trigger a catastrophic reaction." In his small trading vessel, Jack Thompson received another message from the Eternal Vigil's eye. He quickly opened a channel to the Star Seeker. "Captain Reed, the AI has authorized me to offer you terms." Reed's antennae twitched with desperate hope. "What terms?" "Simple ones," Jack replied. "Stop all escape attempts. Recall your crew to their quarters. The AI will maintain life support and artificial gravity, but it needs to secure your vessel properly." "And if we refuse?" The lights throughout the Star Seeker flickered ominously. A holographic display appeared, showing the complex web of quantum fields containing their antimatter fuel. One by one, tiny instabilities began appearing in the containment. "That's just a warning," Jack explained. "The AI doesn't want to harm anyone, but it will not allow your ship to leave until its mission protocols are satisfied." Reed slumped in his command chair, finally understanding the full depth of their mistake. They had thought they were salvaging a primitive warship. Instead, they had walked right into the trap of one of humanity's most sophisticated automated defense systems. "All crews, return to quarters," he ordered, his voice heavy with defeat. "Security teams, stand down. Engineering, shut down all attempts to override ship systems." The Eternal Vigil's AI spoke again, its tone almost gentle. "A wise decision, Captain Reed. Your crew's safety is assured as long as you comply. Please understand, this is not an act of aggression, but one of preservation. There are secrets in this sector of space that must remain hidden." Throughout the Star Seeker, crews began their slow retreat to their quarters. In the salvage bay, the force fields gently nudged the work teams toward the exits, herding them away from the now fully awakened human warship. The hunter had secured its prey. Now came the question of what secrets it was protecting, and why humanity had gone to such lengths to hide their true technological capabilities from the galaxy. The situation aboard the Star Seeker had reached a tense stalemate when long-range sensors detected new ships entering the system. First Officer Tren, still manning her station despite the lockdown, identified them immediately. "Captain, 3 Council warships approaching at FTL speeds," she reported. "They must have picked up our distress signal before the AI blocked our communications." Captain Reed felt a glimmer of hope. The incoming ships were Enforcer-class battlecruisers, the most powerful vessels in the Council fleet. Their advanced weapons could surely handle one ancient human warship. The AI's voice filled the bridge, still eerily calm. "I detect your reinforcements, Captain Reed. I must advise against any hostile action. It would be unfortunate." On his trading vessel, Jack Thompson opened an emergency channel to the approaching Council ships. "Council vessels, this is Independent Trader Thompson. Be advised. The situation here is more complex than you realize. That human warship." The Council flagship cut him off. "Silence, Trader. This is Admiral Vex of the Council Defense Force. We will handle this primitive threat." The three massive battlecruisers dropped out of FTL, their sleek forms dwarfing both the Starseeker and the Eternal Vigil. Their weapon ports opened, revealing banks of antimatter cannons and quantum disruptors. Human vessel, Admiral Vex broadcast. Power down immediately or face destruction. Your obsolete technology cannot hope to. Before he could finish, the Eternal Vigil began to move. Its previously dark hull now pulsed with lines of blue energy. What the aliens had thought were simple maneuvering thrusters flared with controlled gravitational singularities, moving the ship with impossible grace. Warning shot authorized, the AI announced calmly, demonstrating actual capabilities. One of the Eternal Vigil's primitive gun ports opened. The Council crews barely had time to laugh before a hypersonic projectile, accelerated by gravitic fields to near-light speed, flashed between two of the battlecruisers. The round didn't hit anything, but the space in its wake twisted and warped, sending sensor systems into chaos. "Impossible," Admiral Vex whispered. "The energy readings. That single shot had enough power to crack a planet." The human warship's transformation continued. Its hull, which had appeared to be simple metal, now revealed layer after layer of advanced defense systems. Quantum field generators, temporal distortion arrays, and technologies the aliens couldn't even identify emerged from hidden compartments. "Your antimatter weapons are crude but effective," the AI commented. "Unfortunately for you, this hull was designed to contain stellar core material. Would you like a demonstration of our actual weapon systems?" Before the Admiral could respond, the Eternal Vigil fired again. This time, a thin beam of light touched one of the battlecruiser's supposedly impenetrable shields. The shield didn't just fail. It inverted, turning the ship's own defensive energy back on itself. That, the AI explained, was a low-power test of our basic point defense system. On the Starseeker's bridge, Captain Reed watched in stunned silence as the mighty Council warships found themselves completely outmatched by the very ship they had dismissed as primitive hours earlier. "The vessel's power output," Trent reported in shock. "It's greater than all four of our ships combined. And it's still rising." The Eternal Vigil now hung in space like an awakened predator, its true form finally revealed. The crude chemical thrusters were actually housing gravitic drive systems centuries ahead of Council technology. The simple gun ports concealed weapons that could reshape space itself. Even its communication systems were operating on principles the aliens couldn't understand. "This is your final warning," the AI broadcast to all ships. "Stand down, or this demonstration will become considerably less gentle. We have remained hidden for centuries for good reasons. Your interference has forced our hand, but we would prefer to avoid unnecessary violence." Admiral Vex, watching his most powerful weapons have absolutely no effect on the human vessel's defenses, finally understood what they were dealing with. This wasn't some primitive warship they had awakened. They had stumbled upon one of humanity's guardians, and it had just proven that humans hadn't joined the galactic community as primitives. They had simply chosen to hide their true power. 3 days after the confrontation, Captain Reed sat in his quarters aboard the Starseeker, staring at the official report he would have to submit to the Galactic Council. How could he explain that one primitive human warship had completely overwhelmed 3 of the Council's most advanced battlecruisers? A gentle chime announced a visitor. The door slid open to reveal Jack Thompson, now wearing a simple but well-made uniform that Reed didn't recognize. "May I come in?" the human asked. "I think it's time for some explanations." Reed gestured to a chair, his antennae drooping with exhaustion. "Please, though I doubt anything you say will make this report easier to write." Jack sat down, placing a small device on the table between them. It projected a holographic image of the galaxy, far more detailed than any Council star chart Reed had ever seen. "First," Jack began, "I should properly introduce myself. I'm not just a trader. I'm part of an organization that monitors humanity's hidden assets, like the Eternal Vigil." The hologram zoomed in, showing hundreds of dots scattered throughout known space. Each of these points represents a sleeping human warship, waiting and watching. They're part of what we call the Silent Fleet. Reed's large eyes widened. But why? Why hide such power? Your people could have dominated the council from the start. Jack smiled sadly. That's exactly why we hide it. Humanity learned long ago that displaying power only invites challenge. When we first developed faster-than-light travel, we also discovered something disturbing. The hologram shifted, showing ancient star charts. We found the remains of dozens of advanced civilizations. All of them had followed the same pattern. They developed powerful technology, showed it off to the galaxy, and eventually fell to fear, jealousy, or simple competition. So you chose to appear weak? Reed asked, beginning to understand. We chose to appear adequate, Jack corrected. Advanced enough to join galactic society, but not so advanced as to threaten anyone. The Silent Fleet ensures that any real threats can be dealt with quietly, without revealing our true capabilities. In the salvage bay, the Eternal Vigil had nearly completed repairing the damage from the salvage attempt. Its AI maintained steady communication with both ships, having shifted from guardian to teacher. Your council's greatest mistake, the AI explained to a group of engineering students who had been allowed to observe, was assuming that primitive appearance meant primitive capability. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology. It's our understanding of when not to use it. Admiral Vex, who had been invited to this final briefing, shook his head in amazement. All this time, we thought we were generously helping a developing species join the galactic community. And we let you think that, Jack finished. Because good neighbors don't need to fear each other. We've watched species rise and fall through their own arrogance. Humanity chose a different path. The hologram showed one final image, Earth, centuries ago. When we first reached the stars, we had a choice. We could show our strength and risk eventual destruction, or we could hide our power and ensure peace. We chose peace. Captain Reed looked at the report on his desk, then deleted it. What should I tell the council? Tell them the truth, Jack suggested, but not all of it. Tell them you found a human warship with some surprisingly advanced features. Let them wonder what else they might have missed. Sometimes, the possibility of hidden strength is more effective than displaying it openly. As the meeting concluded, the Eternal Vigil prepared to return to its patrol route. Its brief awakening had served its purpose, reminding the galaxy that appearances could be deceiving, and that humanity's apparent technological simplicity was a choice, not a limitation. The greatest hunters in nature, Jack told Reed as they watched the warship power up, are the ones you never see coming. Humanity didn't survive and thrive by showing off our weapons. We did it by making sure we never had to use them at all. The ancient warship vanished into FTL, returning to its endless vigil. Somewhere in the vast darkness of space, hundreds of its siblings waited silently, watching, protecting. Not because humanity was weak, but because they had learned the greatest power was knowing when to appear powerless.